Asana, we put the knees together and the feet apart. So if that's possible, do that. If you need a little space between your knees, certainly take it. If you need a second block, all good. If this isn't going to work in any way, shape, or form, just sit cross-legged. No problem. But go ahead and sit on your block, because it's just going to give us a little support, and it gives us our ankles a reference. So put it sort of a wide way. That's it. Yeah. Okay, we'll just rest the hands on the thighs, draw the shoulders back in line with the hips, lengthen up through the crown, and softly close the eyes. And just focus on a smooth and even breath at this time. Just becoming aware of that process, but not creating any particular change in the breath. Just a natural breath. Encourage your breath to be calm and smooth. Allow this part of your practice to be a settling of the dust of the week. So perhaps it's been busy for you. Certainly if that's the case, all the more reason to give time for that to happen. And by continuing to focus on your breath, your mind can be encouraged to settle even more. We close the eyes to signal to ourselves that we're turning our attention away from things outside of us. And that's a very important, even essential aspect to this practice, that we explore our inner world. We observe what comes up for us inside as we go through the postures in practice. Our responses to those experiences and stimuli is revealing to us. It's revealing ourselves to us. You can observe yourself even here. Do you find it hard to sit still at the beginning of practice? Do you prefer to be more still and find movement later in practice more challenging? Make space for that self-discovery in your practice today to unfold. As we take just a few more moments here, I want you to consider what your breath is conveying to you at this time. What is your breath communicating to you about your energy this morning? Is your breath easy, full, and rich? Does it feel more labored and shallow? What effort is required? And how is your breath expressing? Let's be the beginning of that inward journey that you continue throughout our practice. Before we open our eyes and add any additional movements here, I want you to observe now the form of your body as you're sitting here. Your sitting bones feel like they're pressing equally on your block, or is there more heaviness to one side? Can you establish an even lift through the front and the back of your pelvis so it's upright? What is your tendency? Is it to go forward or back in that way? Can you continue to lift evenly through the abdomen and the low back? Is there an even lift through the center of the ribs? Neither collapsing or overlifting the back ribs. Are your shoulders forward of your hips? Are your ears forward of your shoulders? Adjust to be even. Can you arrive in a position, as we take our last couple of breaths, where you perceive the crown of your head to be directly above pelvic floor? Take one more smooth breath, run it along that even channel. And then bring your palms very gently together in front of your chest. We're going to take 3 ohms. I welcome you to join us or just listen and take it in. Let's take a full breath in and out. And another smooth inhale. Your chest lifted and very gently bow the head. Release your hands, palms face up. Gently lift the head. And very softly from the back of the skull, allow your eyes to open. Okay, let's come off the block. Set it aside, and just for a moment, I'd like you to come to hands and knees, but then from there, we're going to do an alternate stretch back of the legs just to clear the knees. So stretch your right leg back, just with the toes on the floor, and just press the heel towards the wall that's behind you. Lift the thigh up to the ceiling, straighten the leg, and then switch sides. Stretch the other leg back. Abdomen gently lifted, that tone brought across your chest, and then release that down. So we're back in table here now. Emphasize the thumb side of your hands as we are more likely to protect the wrists in that case. And you may notice that your forearms roll in as you do that, and that's great. But at the same time, can you spread across your chest and spin your upper arms out? Keep the thumb sides heavy. And it will encourage the forearms to continue to roll in, but spin the upper arms out. So biceps spinning out away from one another. And then send your gaze just slightly forward. Maintain that natural curve of the neck. And I want you to shift now a little bit more weight onto your left hand and lift your right arm and reach it forward. Turn your thumb up towards the ceiling, so you're doing that same spinning out of the bicep. And then do the same thing with the leg we just did. stretch your left leg back with the toes curled under on the floor. That's it. Let that be a reference point for the alignment of your legs. So all of your toes are on the floor right now. And then lift, up just the left. And then lift the leg up. You're really listening there, Danielle. She's like, I will curl all of my toes, even the right. So reach back through the lifted leg, but really focus on that lift, in particular of the inner thigh. Keep your gaze slightly forward. So the whole spine is lengthening. And imagine you're recreating that same shape that you were in sitting on the block in Virasana. That the crown of your head would be in line with your tailbone. So the head's not lifting too high, it's not dropping too low, it's simply lengthening out from the entire spine. Take one more breath here. And then exhale, release. We're going to shift to the other side, switch sides. So shift a little bit more weight to your right hand as you lift and reach your left arm forward. Again, turning the thumb up, so you're spinning the bicep open. Stretch back with the right leg, start with the toes on the floor. Reference that all 5 of the right toes are on the floor, and then lift the leg. Emphasize that lift from the inner thigh. So we're spinning the arm out, but we're spinning the leg in. Reach back, reach forward through the lifted limbs in equal measure. Notice your breath. So as we get into maybe some balancing postures, some more challenging postures, right? We can lose that sense of awareness of the breath. Come back to that. You take one more here. Nice full breath. And then exhale. Release. We're going to take a couple breaths in extended child's pose. So go ahead and bring your knees a little further back. Keep your hands where they are. Put that thumb side nice and heavy. And then just push your hips back onto your heels. And I want you to start with your head up a little bit. So be unconcerned with your head reaching the floor for the moment. That's it. And what I really want you to focus on is if you've got that block underneath your sitting bones again. So you've felt that pressure of your sitting bones on that block. Imagine your heels are the new block. And see if you can actually push your sitting bones onto your heels. It's almost like a little bit more of a tucking quality through the pelvis. But at the same time, I want you to keep reaching your arms forward and stretching your spine forward. Keep the thumb sides of your hands heavy. Your forearms kind of move towards one another. Maintain that same spinning out of the upper arms, the inner upper arms of biceps moving away from one another. Reaching forward and pulling back in the same way you were working those oppositional reaches of arm and leg. You're doing that now with hands and hips. Take one more breath. And then glide yourself back forward. And don't change anything. Your hands will be a little bit ahead of your shoulders. Keep them there. Tuck your toes. Lift your knees slowly and press up and back into downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Feel free in this first downward dog to take your feet wider or to put a slight bend in the knee. Find what's going to work for you to achieve maximum length through your spine. So again, we're looking to recreate that same alignment from our very first posture, sitting on the block, Virasana. You're again seeking to find that alignment between the crown of the head and the pelvic floor. So what needs to adjust here? It depends on your own body. If you're a little stiffer in the shoulders, you may need to work a little bit more on pressing the shoulder blades towards your chest and finding that length through the arms and the shoulder blades on the way to your hips. If you're a little bit bendier, you may tend to kind of sink the ribs and the belly towards the floor, in which case you actually need to lift the chest up a little and draw the front ribs towards the hips. So find out for yourself. Aligning the ears with your upper arms will help to bring the head and neck into alignment. Last 2 breaths, really focus now on the legs. Press your shins back, ankles back even, top thighs back. That work will continue in this next posture, just a different orientation. Come to your plank, shoulders right above your wrists. So I mention often to lift your thighs up, not to take your hips higher, but just to hold the hips up. Can you think of lifting your ankles up? Imagine you actually wanted to lift your feet up off the floor. What does that do to the rest of your body? What does that ignite through the core of your body? Again, send your gaze slightly forward. So we're looking again for that. It's like a through line of energy, like a flowing river from pelvic floor through crown of the head. So any dips or drops, it's like a meander. Let's create a straight line. One more breath. You bring the chest forward, gather the elbows as they bend, lower all the way down, use your knees if you need to. You can land, untuck the toes, and we'll move into an easy cobra. If you need to, Melissa, you can come up with your forearms. Shoulders high, elbows streaming straight back behind shoulders. Lengthen back through the legs. Imagine here that both legs were in that extended alternate leg and limb reach. Imagine that. And then go ahead and float your feet back and up. So they are doing that. So just like we lifted one leg in our table, we're lifting both legs now. Lift from your inner thighs very powerfully so the tops of the feet continue to face the floor. So inner thighs even a little bit more negative. So you're spinning your legs. That's it. Okay, one more breath here. And you bring your hands a little further back and you can let your palms go flat. Okay, now just curl your toes under. Keep stretching back through the legs, stretch back even through the heels. Use your knees again if you need to, but otherwise power yourself straight back up to plank. And then all the way back to downward facing dog. Exhale. So when we move through our sun salutations, as we move through either a cobra or an up dog option, I want you to remember that feeling of actually lifting your legs. So we won't be lifting the legs, but they're working just as hard as they were in that position. So it's a good reference point. Okay, last breath in here. Slowly walk your feet forward to your hands. At the top of your mat, lift and reach your chest forward. And then exhale, fold. And then we'll come all the way up to standing. Circle, sweep your arms wide and high. And exhale, arms down to your side. Let's continue. Spin your arms out, reach up, inhaling. Find the pace that works for you. Spread the arms wide, hinge and fold forward. Uttanasana, hands to the earth. Inhale, lift and extend your chest forward. Keep your chest forward as you step your legs back one at a time into your plank. So this is where we indeed want all 10 toes on the floor. Feet already hips width apart. Chest forward, gaze forward. Come further forward, lower 2 or through chaturanga. And then up dog or cobra, whatever you're ready for now. But remember that lift and reach of the legs. Do that same enthusiastic lift here. Exhale back. Downward facing dog. So we revisit this posture again and again through our practice. The nature of a practice is to repeat, to do again, to make better. So it's not just a repeating, it's a refining. What subtle shifts will make your posture more spacious, more supported. Last breath in. Gaze back to the top of your mat, bend your knees, and lightly step or spring your feet forward. Coming right into a lifted chest on your inhale, and then exhale to fold. Inhale, rise up, press evenly down through the feet as you circle sweep your arms. Exhale, arms to your side. Again, arms out and up, inhale. Find a supportive breath. Exhale. See if you can stretch that breath to last. Inhale, extend your spine forward. Evolving our sun salutation, step walker, jump back now to a bent elbow position. And your choice again, cobra or an up dog. Stretch back through the legs. Exhaling, downward facing. Hips up and back. Coordinating, just as we did on hands and knees, reaching opposite limbs. Coordinating the work of the arms and the work of the legs to be balanced. They're sharing the same job, to draw the spine long and back. So you're pushing away the floor, you're pulling back through the legs. You can try walking your feet a little closer. Take one more deep breath. And again, look forward, shift the weight to your hands as lightly as you can. Spring your feet. Lift and lengthen through the chest. Exhale, releasing back down. Inhale to rise, pull the abdomen in for support. And exhaling, arms in. One more time, inhale, arms up. Exhale, long spine, hinge and fold, Inhale, lift and extend. Prepare here for chaturanga. Palms flat if you're jumping especially. Step walker jump to bend elbows. And then rising up again. Draw the shoulders back, spread the collarbones. Exhale, lift loose. Downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, just like we did on hands and knees, reach your right leg back and up behind you. Position the leg in the same way we did, with the inner thigh leading that lift. So the leg is rolling in, and then bring yourself forward to a plank with the leg up. Three-legged plank. Keep that lift of the inner thigh. Toes are facing the floor. Reach back through the heel, and then pull the knee to your chest and see if from here you can lunge through. If you need to grab the ankle and move it, no problem. And then in this high lunge, runner's lunge, come up into your fingertips. Top the floor. Take a moment to align your hips here by putting a little bit more weight into your outer right heel to encourage your outer right thigh to in and back. Roll a little bit more weight to the pinky side of your left foot to roll your outer left hip forward, but create that same lift of the inner left thigh. Then we're going to float the hands off the floor and reach your arms forward on a diagonal. If at any time this becomes too much, just put your hands back on the floor. Please stamp down into your right heel, keep dragging your outer right hip in and back, and lengthen through both sides of the waist. Create an enthusiastic reach of the arms. Breathing smoothly. Lifting through the abdomen and front ribs so the back body is as full as the front. With one more breath so you can create that same long line from pelvic floor through crown of the head. And then place your hands back onto your mat. Step your right foot back to meet your left in plank. You can choose to go straight to downward dog or take a vinyasa in your own time. Let's take a breath here and down the dog, pose. Inhale, left right lifts. Couple breaths in downward dog with the leg up. So you can send your right heel further to the floor. Create that same spinning in of the lifted leg, encouraging the inner thigh up towards the ceiling. One more breath like that. And then shift into your plank. Legs stays up. Inner thigh up. So legs straight for the moment, maybe. That's it. Shoulders right above your wrists. Hips low, tailbone long. Pull the knee to your chest. Lunge. Come up onto your finger pads. And again, press a little bit more weight to your outer left heel to drag your outer left hip back. A little bit more weight to the pinky toe side of the right foot to bring the outer right hip forward. Almost like you're kind of shifting these little pieces to kind of lock in together into center.
And already pursuing that long line through the trunk, that even line, and then float the arms to extend alongside that same pathway. So it's like the arms and the ears are in that same relationship with downward dog. So ears alongside your upper arms. The head not too high, it's not too low. You're creating a streamline of your body. From the back heel, through the back leg, through the hips, through the trunk, through the arms. Especially those of you on screen, I can really gather that image of that one long line, like an arrow. The crown of your head be the tip of the arrow. Last breath here. Hands down. Left foot lifts to step back. Feel free to go to downward dog or lower down, moving through your vinyasa. Observe your breath as you go. Better that you slow your movements if the breath dictates so. Couple breaths here in dog pose. Is the thumb side of your hand still heavy? Are you still spinning your upper arms out? The answer, yes and yes. Look forward, shift the weight to your hands, lightly step or spring your feet. Coming right into a lifted chest, pulling up through the thighs. Exhale to fold. Inhale, rise up all the way. Big tall reach. And exhale, arms to your side. So we're going to begin that process of rotating the legs out through a couple of postures. This is a nice warm-up for that. And bend the knees just a little bit, like you were coming into Utkatasana. We're going to lift the right foot up and cross the right ankle just above the knee, so standing figure 4. And gather your palms together at the center of your chest. Focus on lengthening up through the spine, through the crown, and then begin to tip your hips back and your chest forward. And again, I keep referencing this, but it's a really important reference. Crown of the head in line with the pelvic floor. So we can have a tendency to drop the head or have the head too high, but you want to think length through the entire spine, from the base of the spine right through to the crown of the head. Now, just like we did in the last posture, you can choose, this is optional, to reach the arms forward, again alongside your ears as an extension of the length through the sides of the body. Stamp down really firmly into your left heel. Stabilizing your left ankle. Find a smooth breath. One more here. Hands back to the center chest. Push into your left foot. Stand up. Both feet to the floor. Other side. Bend knees just a little bit. Left ankle crosses over. Flex that ankle. Flex the foot. Gather your palms. You're already finding that length through the spine. Start to tip your hips back. Chest forward. So there's an active reach of the chest away from the pelvis. Maybe add the reach of the arms. Just like in downward facing dog. Observe for yourself which parts might be collapsing or lifting too high, and try to streamline that lengthening. With breath, soft breath. One more. Palms to center chest. Press into the right foot, stand up. Both feet down, arms to your side. So we're going to take a step open to the right. If that makes sense for you at home. Take the feet apart. Oh, grab your blocks. Je m'excuse. Blocks tall. So many of you may prefer just sort of like a medium range stance for triangle. That's certainly my preference. I don't prefer a really wide stance. So I take a narrower stance than I do for a warrior pose, but I'll leave that up to you. Please start with your hands on your hips and your blocks tall. If you have 2 blocks, just one behind each ankle is sufficient. Turn your left toes in. Turn your whole right leg out from deep within the hip. Front heel lining up with the back arch. Okay, the hips have spun a little bit to the right, all good. But I want you to lift the frontal hip bones up. We did that a lot last week. Creating that upright position of the pelvis. It's going to serve us well again today. Keep your hands on your hips as you shift the pelvis to the left. You may feel that journey of the hip bones, right? That sideways journey. But can you continue to encourage them to actually lift up to your chest to create more length through the low back and the tailbone? And then place your right hand down onto your block, the tall block. Keep your left hand on your hip for a moment. And with your right hand, I want you to imagine you were dragging your block back to your left heel. And with that, encourage the right shoulder blade away from your neck and your right shoulder away from your neck. Lengthen out through the neck and the crown of the head as you drag that shoulder back. Now with your left hand, slide it up towards your ribs. Yeah, right at the top. And with your left hand, encourage your top ribs to move down towards the floor so that the bottom right ribs lengthen out a little bit more. So you find that evenness through both sides. We tend to kind of pop those ribs up. Let them melt into your body with the reference of that hand. And then slowly extend that left arm up. Without the ribs following, with the ribs melting in, bottom ribs lengthening towards the crown of your head, right shoulder and shoulder blade moving back, as if to slide the block back towards your left heel. Now, last thing, without losing any of that, can you press off your block with your right hand and turn your abdomen, ribs, and chest a little bit further to the left? Don't take your right shoulder or shoulder blade with you. I think you move your block closer to your left foot, physically closer, even further back. Back. There. Now see if you can move your shoulder back more. Yes. Good. Lean back, baby. Lean back. You got that block there. It's holding on. That's it. One more breath. So then trickling your hand on the block just for today. Even bring closer to your left foot. And see if you can drag that right shoulder back more. Yes. Okay, press into both feet. Inhale, bring yourself back up. And turn your feet to parallel. Bring your hands back onto your hips. So other side, turn your right toes in, turn your left leg out from deep within the hip again. Heel to arch alignment with your hands on your hips. So again, you'll notice they're kind of spinning to the left. Lift them up. So as you go, think of the hip bones still drawing up towards your chest. Lifting, so the tailbone's lengthening. So as you come sideways, this is creating length through the front of the body to balance the length of the back of the body. And then we'll work on balancing both sides. So hand down to the left hand down to the block, right hand still on your hip. Again, with your left hand, imagine you were sliding the block back towards your right heel. And as you do that, draw your left shoulder back. Left shoulder blade even back. Slide your right hand onto your ribs on the top, the right ribs, and actually physically press them down. This will sort of move your ribs closer to your hip. And with that, lengthen the left ribs more. Keep that as you send the right arm up. So the ribs don't follow. Ribs continue to melt into the body. The left side lengthening out, crown of the head lengthening out. We're seeking that same relationship between crown of the head and pelvic floor, which requires evenness through all four sides. Continue to draw your left shoulder and shoulder blade back to your right heel and work on turning. Belly, ribs, chest to the right. Maybe even the gaze will follow. Very nice. Take another full breath here. And then push into both feet. Bring yourself back up. Turn your feet to parallel. And we'll step or dump the feet together. Okay, if your blocks are not in your way, you can leave them, but I think for most we have to move them off the sides. I have dual systems going here. We'll come back to the front of the mat. In Tadasana, feet together or close. Let's turn the palms forward. So again, we're getting that spinning out of the upper arms, and from there, reach up, arms up. And then exhale, hinge, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, lift and extend through both sides of the waist, just like triangle. Clench your palms, step back and lower, jump back to bent elbow position. And then into Cobra Up Dog. As you're ready, reach back through the legs, find that lift and reach the legs, that powerful lift, and then back to downward dog. And take a couple breaths here. Smooth and steady. You find that same calm breath that you established at the beginning. Press a little bit more firmly into the thumb sides of your hands for that gathering of your forearms. Look forward. Press even more into the hands as you step or spring your feet. Inhale, lift and lengthen through the entire spine. Exhale to fold. Inhale, rising up. Circle sweep the arms. And exhale, arms down to your side. Okay, so, tree pose, Vrikshasana. Shift a little bit more weight to your left foot. And I want you to start by just turning your right leg out. So just like we did for triangle, we're just turning the leg open from the hip. So with your toes, see if you can get your toes facing quite far to the right, and hug your outer left hip in. So feel the legs are disagreeing with each other right now, right? They're doing two different things. So notice how the right leg, like for me, my right leg wants to pull my left leg along. So I'm having to work really hard at engaging these outer hip muscles. That's important right from the beginning. Hold that. Lift your right foot up, keep that strong spinning out of the thigh. Grab hold of the ankle, place it somewhere along the inner left leg, avoiding the knee. Hips are forward, outer left hip still firm. Your inner left leg is the new floor for the right foot. Press it in firmly, and gather your palms at center chest. So create a really succinct relationship between the right foot and the left leg. They're pressing to meet each other in equal measure. Maybe consider reaching your arms up. You can gaze forward so your chin is level with the floor. And you can find that same alignment, that evenness through the spine that continues through the arms. Keep spinning the biceps out and the triceps towards one another as you grow taller and taller through that reach. One more breath. And pull the hands back down the center line. Bring your right knee forward and set that foot back down. The other side. Turn your left leg out. Establish right away that gathering in of the outer right hip. If it's nothing to do with what's happening on the left leg. And then bring your left leg up. Grab the ankle, place the foot. Two sides may be quite different, so the foot may even have to go into a different position, that's fine. Palms to center chest. Establish that relationship between the left foot and the inner right thigh. Keep gathering your outer right hip. So be unconcerned with taking the left knee back. Be more concerned with the hips squaring forward. Chest tall, maybe add the reach of the arms. The more you continue to pursue that relationship between the left foot and the inner right leg and compact the two together, the more the outer hips will firm in and offer stability. Prioritize the hips staying forward, squaring forward, so both sides of your waist can be evenly long. Last breath. Hands back down the center line. Left knee forward. And down. Okay, please bring your blocks to the front of your mat, like so. On either side, sort of medium height. Nice to have two for this. And then from that position, spin in between your blocks. Yep, so I'm just stepping back just so I can't, my head's cut off. It's very odd. Turn your palms forward. Inhale. All up in balance. Exhale again, gentle forward. I will move forward now. Inhale, lift and lengthen your chest. And again, your choice, step, walk, or jump back, right hip, bent elbows if you're jumping. And then up dog or cobra, reaching back to the legs. Exhale, downward facing dog. Okay, this time in downward facing dog, bring your feet all the way together. Right together in the midline. So we're not going to use the blocks for this first thing, but then we'll use them for the next thing. So this is going to remind us a little bit of triangle pose. Come forward to your plank. Shift your right hand to the center of your mat. And with your feet already together, we're just going to pivot onto the little toe side of the right foot. And right away, you can choose to put your left foot in front, like I'm doing here, for extra support. And go ahead and place your left foot on top of your left ribs. So yes, we want to lift the right hip up away from the floor powerfully, but we don't want to lift the right ribs up. So let the right ribs, left ribs, I should say, melt into your body as your left hip lifts. Oh my gosh. Then send your left arm up. You know, there are times, even the rights and lefts get me. Tailbone towards the heels. Some of you could do that more. Tailbone to the heels. Remember in triangle, I asked you to lift your frontal hips towards your chest, even as you were coming into the pose. Do that really powerfully now. Frontal hips to your chest. Tailbone to your heels. Last breath. Okay, release your left hand and move your right hand to the right. Yes. Press back downward facing dog. Feet together. Shift yourself into a plank. Center your left hand and pivot onto the little toe side of your left foot. And right away, bring your right hand onto your right ribs. Yes, got it right this time. So yes, I want you to powerfully lift your left hip away from the floor, but notice how that tends to send the ribs up. Let the ribs go down and the hip go up like they're trying to meet in the middle at your navel. And then send your right arm up. For sure, that top leg can come in front for extra support. But in either case, you're still powerfully lifting the side of your left hip away from the floor. Frontal hip bones towards your chest. Tailbone to your heels. And top right ribs melting into the body. Nicole, think tailbone to your heels more. Yes, think tuck for you. Even more. Go, go, go. Yes. Last breath. Right hand comes down. Left hand moves to the left. Press back downward facing dog. And then please walk your hands back to your feet right away. And you may have to bend your knees for this, no problem. Lift your feet up and slide your hands underneath from the front until your big toes touch your wrists. So do what you need to do to get your hands all the way under there. And then even if the knees are deeply bent, push your chest forward to find length through the front of the body. And take that length straight down to the floor. Some of you will be able to bend the elbows out to the sides. Parahastasana. So Melissa, if this doesn't work, you can just do some kind of release for the wrists, like the begging puppy. Just standing, this even fine. This is really meant for the wrists. Last breath. Inhale as you draw your chest forward, release your hands from under your feet. And then just keeping your feet at the back of your mat, just walk yourself back out into downward facing dog. Now, you can stay in downward facing dog for a couple more breaths. If you're feeling the calling of a cleansing vinyasa, now's the time to move into plank and do that. We will need those in the next moment, by the way. They were in the right spot. Sorry. From downward facing dog again, feet together, don't worry. This is not Paschastasana number 2. Right leg goes up on the in-breath. So remember how we came into this before. I want you to do that same thing. Come to plank, bend the knee to your chest, but prepare to place the foot right in the center spot between your hands this time. So we start on a bit of a tightrope, but now as we plant the back heel flat, which I want you to do, now the front heel should line up with the back arch. We want to start to introduce an outward rotation of this front thigh. So I want you to work on spinning from deep within your hip like we did for triangle, the inner thigh towards the outer thigh down towards your mat. Now go ahead and bring your block in closer for your right hand to rest on. I know we don't always use the block, and some of you don't need the block, but I'm going to ask you to use it for today. Spin your chest to the left, put your left hand on your left hip. So bend a little deeper there, Lincoln. Yes. Now, with your right hand on the block, just like we did in triangle, draw your right shoulder and shoulder blade towards your back heel. Yes, pull it back away from your neck. So if I was to come over and put my hand on your shoulder blade, I would be moving, yes, in that direction. Okay, don't change that. It's gonna try to change, I promise you it will, because the other arm's doing something else it's gonna try to follow. Top arm, I want you to reach it straight up, just for a breath, so you turn your chest in that direction of the lifted arm, away from the right leg, which is pressing against your right arm. Now that top arm, I'm going to rotate it from your shoulder, so your palm is facing the crown of your head, and then reach it overhead alongside your ear, just like we do for downward dog. What happened to your right shoulder and shoulder blade? Did they try to follow? Imagine you were sliding that block back to your left heel, just as we did in triangle pose. Keep your right leg pressing against your right arm, left arm extending, and capturing that flow of the whole spine in equal measure, ideally, right through the crown of the head. So the more you create that gentle turning of ribs and chest, the more space you'll have for your crown to lengthen freely. Last couple breaths. Keep stamping down really strongly through the back left heel. And taking a lift through the inner left thigh. You take your left arm straight up, and then take that hand to the floor, chest to the floor. Lift your back heel, move your block off to the side, step back to a plank. And you can lift straight to dog pose from there, or slowly lower down. Continuing through up dog or cobra, spread the collarbones. Exhale to downward dog. Take a couple breaths. In downward facing dog, feet together. Inhale, lift your left leg. Shift to plank. Bend the knee to your chest and prepare to plant the foot in the center spot. Back heel comes to the floor. And again, we're working on rotating this front thigh out. So you're pinning the outer hip in and under. Grab your block for underneath your left hand. Really strongly pin the outer hip in and under. And then imagine, so with your right hand still on your hip, that this left shoulder is in block, we're dragging back. You drag that back away from your neck, and then turn your chest, reach up with the right arm. Don't let the left shoulder follow. And then turn the top arm from the shoulder, palm facing the crown of your head, and reach your right arm overhead, alongside your ear, just like downward dog. Keep that turning of your chest up away from the floor. So you have a little space there for the crown of the head to lengthen out freely. Keep dragging that block with the help of the left shoulder and shoulder blade. You're dragging it energetically up towards your right heel. Your right heel, stamping down firmly into your mat. And you'll send your right heel back a tiny bit more. They are beautiful. That's it. Breathing smoothly, evenly. See if you can look sideways underneath your right arm, maybe even slightly up as you continue to turn your chest. Press away the left arm with the left leg. Drag the left shoulder back again, one more breath. Okay, right arm goes up. And then all the way back down to the floor with your block. Lift your back heel, plank, stepping back. Vinyasa is optional. Downward dog directly is fine. You move in with breath, find that big stretch of the legs in your back bend. Hold steady here in cow pose. Breathing in and out through the nose. And look to the top of your mat. Bend your knees. Lightly step or spring your feet to your hands. Lift and lengthen on your next inhale. Find that even length. Exhale, fold. And then rise up to the top. Inhale. Reach. Exhale, arms to your side. Okay, let's step to the left this time. I want you to have one block. Actually, have two. Put the two in front of you and feet wide. We're going to take Prasarita Padottanasana, and I'm hoping that everybody will have something for their head to focus on, whether that's the floor, 1 or 2 blocks. Hopefully that one of the 3 can work. So feet are parallel, so toes straight ahead, hands on your hips. So you could open both heels a tiny bit more, depending on, that's it. Inhale in string as well, heels open a tiny bit more. Yes. Lift your chest up on your inhale. As you exhale, you're going to hinge from your hips and come forward. Halfway down to the floor, release your hands. Now in that position, with your hands on the floor, lengthen forward through the chest and through the crown of the head. Even for a moment, I want you to look up, like overdo through the neck for a moment. Yes, that's it, that's it. And really reach your chest forward as you're looking up. Now don't lose any of that length through the chest and just bring your chin in towards your chest slightly so it's the crown of the head, like that tip of the arrow reaching forward. Now we're going to start to go, yeah, you're great like that, Melissa. You're going to start to walk your hands back. And some of you may find, okay, my head's not quite reaching the floor. I'm going to grab that block and put it underneath the very top of my head, the crown of the head, not the forehead, not the hairline, but the crown of your head. So you may need more than one block. You may not need any, but I'd like for your head to contact something. So use 2, use the top height, whatever works. So the very crown of the head is resting on the floor. So step with your hands a little wider. So your hands are shoulder width apart. For many of you, your elbows are bending. Great. But make sure the elbows gather as they bend, just like they would for Chaturanga Dandasana. Like they were coming in alongside ribs. And as the head is resting down on something, remember this work we've been doing with the shoulders and the shoulder blades? Yes, thank you. Just like in triangle and side angle we just did, I want you to now, in this position, you're moving your shoulders and shoulder blades away from your head again, but now they're lifting up towards the ceiling without bringing your head. Keep your head releasing, that's it, and then Nicole, yeah. Strong lift of the shoulders and shoulder blades. Gather your elbows, pull up through the thighs. As you press down evenly through your feet, find an even lift through the legs. Okay, one more breath here. Okay, with your next inhale, straighten the arms and lengthen your chest forward once again. You can walk your hands further forward and then bring your hands onto your hips, press into your feet, lead with your chest to rise. Good, that walkers, jump your feet together, come back to the front of your mat, your blocks can go out of the way now. Stay facing forward, the top of your mat. Feet together or close. Bend your knees a little bit. Reach your arms forward and up to Utkatasana. And move your ankles back, shins back, knees back. Lengthen your sitting bones towards the backs of your knees to lift the front of the pelvis up. And as you do that, still release your inner thighs to the floor. See if you can gather your front ribs into your body, toning the abdomen a little bit more. And then place your hands beside your feet, hips rise, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, lengthening forward through both sides of the chest, clench your palms, step, walk, or jump back, Chaturanga, or all the way to the floor, to lower, and then rise up again into your Cobra or up dog. Reach, reach, reach through the legs, through the toes. Exhale, downward. Okay, so coming into this the same way we've been doing. So this might not be how we always do this, but for today, lift your right leg back and up behind you. Again, lifting from the inner leg, and that same rotation is going to be maintained as you come forward into your plank. Then bend the knee towards your chest, and this time plant the foot close to the right thumb. So it's on the right side, definitively on the right side. Plant your back heel flat, keep it on the left side. So you can angle your left toes even further forward. And in doing so, pin your right hip back, your left hip forward, reach your arms forward in that diagonal, just like we did earlier. So you're just hovering above the front leg. So modified warrior one to start. In this modified position, see if you can lengthen both sides more evenly by continuing to drag your right hip back and your left hip forward. Yes. Step back into your left heel, and from your left heel, lift your arms straight up. Spin your ribs forward, chest forward. Do that all the way from the left leg and the hip. One more in-breath. So you can bring your arms right alongside your ears. Challenge that opening through the shoulders and lift of the pelvis. And then hands to your mat. You take it through a vinyasa in your own time, or go straight back to dog pose and prepare for side two. Inhale, lift your left leg straight up, lift it from the inner thigh, come forward to your plank, bend the knee towards your chest, and lunge it close to your left thumb. So it's on the left side, get even more on the left side, probably step. Yep, punch your right heel on the right side, give yourself that space right to left, and then float your arms forward as you drag your left hip back, right hip forward. From there, reach your arms forward. See if you can find even length. So I'm sitting on my heels, like sort of not unlike Virasana, that first posture we did. So it's easy for me to lengthen evenly through my arms and through both sides of my waist. What do you have to do with your pelvis and legs to make this possible in this posture? Drag your left hip back, roll your right leg and hip forward, and then from the back heel, rooting, rise up, reach up, straight up. So to bring your arms further back, I don't want you to blast your ribs forward. I want you to lift your pelvis up. Lift your pelvis more upright. Yes, and then challenge that opening from the shoulders from there. Bend deep into the front leg, bring your back hip forward, drag your front hip back. Beautiful. Hands down. You might have different words for it. Step back, plank. Optional vinyasa. Easy for me to say through the hall. My vantage point. Good. Make your way to downward dog. Please take a couple of breaths there. Get in and out through the nose. Walk your hands back to your feet for a moment. And just clasp your elbows. Just clasp the elbows. A nice gentle Uttanasana. Relax and spread the toes, even as you're encouraging the weight to drift a little bit closer towards them. Like you're trying to bring the weight more to the front of your heels and to the toe mounds more than the back of the heels. So this is the opposite of what we've been doing with the shoulders and shoulder blades through the knee postures. You're allowing them to be drawn down towards the floor, towards the head. Let those muscles relax for a moment. In one more breath. So we're going to need the blocks for this next posture. So bring your hands back down onto your mat. You might need to bring your knees down to gather your blocks and move them forward. And I actually want you to place them tall on either side at the front of your mat. And then once they're there, go back into downward facing dog. Your hands between your blocks, the blocks tall. Coming back to that same posture we just did, but a little bit more quickly this time. Inhale, right leg up. Shift to plank. Bend it into your chest, lunge it close to the right thumb. Plant your left heel. Drag your right hip back, roll your left hip forward, and then reach your arms forward and all the way up. One smooth motion, warrior one. Lift the pelvis, reach the arms. See if you can find more evenness front to back through that lift of the pelvis. Now, place your hands down and bring your blocks in closer. Put your hands on your blocks and go ahead and straighten your front leg. Step your back foot in a little closer, maybe about like 2/3 of the way. Have the feet positioned in the same way as you do for warrior one. So right foot on the right side, left foot on the left side, left foot angled, and work on rolling your left leg and hip forward and drawing your right hip back. See if with the hands on the blocks and the work of your pelvis that you can create even length through both sides. Now you might imagine what I want you to do with the blocks. Imagine they're trying to drag back. So draw your shoulders and your shoulder blades back and lengthen your chest forward. We do want to do this in plank pose as well. If you can keep the legs straight and keep all the work the same and lower your blocks, go ahead and do that. You can lower them any amount. You can ultimately even get rid of them and be on your finger pads, but it's nice to have the palms flat as a reference point for the shoulders and the shoulder blades. Pulling back. Chest and crown lengthening forward. Yes, we're demanding more of the right hamstrings, the whole back of the right leg. That's the point. What I actually want you to do for the last couple of breaths is think of lifting your right sitting bone further back and up away from your right knee. Do that prudently. Can be overdone. Good, lengthen both sides forward for one more breath. And then move your blocks out of the way. Bend into your front knee so you can step your left foot back and then your right. Optional vinyasa. Your downward dog. Prepare for side two. Inhale, lift the left leg from the inner thigh. Bring yourself to plank. Bend the knee towards your chest and step the foot close to the thumb. Plant your back heel, angle the toes far forward, roll the whole right leg and hip forward, bend into the front knee deeply, and then arms forward and up into Virabhadrasana 1, one smooth movement. Pause at the top. Find an even lift front and back by lifting the frontal hips up towards your chest. Find evenness through side to side by dragging your left hip back and your right hip forward. Okay, now bring your hands down. Please start with tall blocks. Straighten your front leg. Step your back foot a little closer, plant the heel. And then work on, you might need to bring the blocks in closer, but coordinate the drawing back of your shoulders and shoulder blades, the lengthening forward of the chest all the way from the navel. And keeping an even pressure down through that front foot, you're not only dragging your left hip back, but lifting your left sitting bone up and back, away from your left knee. So we're asking that back of the left leg to lengthen more and more, but it's really the belly of the hamstring. I don't want you to actually focus the stretch on the sitting bone. That's just like a directional journey. It's not specifically that one place, but the whole back of the left leg. lengthening, backing up. Chest forward in opposition. Maybe you're lowering your blocks at this point. Maybe still palms flat, so you can still reference drawing back the shoulders and shoulder blades. One more breath here. Okay, move your blocks if you're still using them. Bend into your front knee. Right foot back, left foot back, plank. Maybe lowering forward and down from there. Lifting to your up dog or cobra, shoulders back. And then exhale to downward dog. Please come down onto your knees. Sit back into your heels. Take a few breaths in child's pose. And if this doesn't work for your knees, then just come into a downward facing shavasana. Resting in your forehead. So choose the distance between your knees. Maybe they're all the way together, maybe slightly apart, maybe further apart, big toes together. Let your shoulders relax and melt. So they're doing, again, the opposite from what we've been doing. They're relaxing, likely in the direction of your neck, so you're not preventing that. Certainly not forcing it, just allowing them to rest where they will. And again, coming back to your breath. Calm breaths, smooth breaths. The breath can be nurturing, in fact. Soothing. Find that breath. The last two. Okay, reach your arms forward. Stretch them out as far as they'll go. So extended child pose. Adho Mukha Virasana. Glide forward. Tuck your toes, lift your knees. Rest the dog pose. And stand down facing. So there's sort of an image that comes to mind as we kind of work towards building up to the peak of our posture. And well, the season is coming. I picture the Grinch with this whole load being pushed up Mount Crumpet. So here we are pushing a big load up. Not that any of us are like the Grinch or anything, but yes, we're carrying a big load and we're kind of pushing it up. So it can feel like that towards this further practice. We're almost to that peak. Okay, from downward dog, look to the front of your mat, bend your knees, step off, bring your feet to your hands. And then lift and lengthen at the front of your mat. And keep that length as you hold. Okay, and then lengthen back up again halfway, not to standing, but just halfway, Ardha Uttanasana. And your blocks should be conveniently there. Let's go ahead and bring them tall in front of you, like so. Placing your hands on your blocks. And in this position, I want you to shift a little bit more weight to your left foot and start to slide, almost like dragging your right toes back so that you find that you can keep that even pressure from big toe to little toe. So when the leg actually lifts, you're naturally rolling the leg in. That inner thigh is lifting powerfully up to the ceiling. Chest forward. But pin the outer left hip in toward the midline, just like we did in tree pose for Chasana. Keep lifting through the inner leg, inner back leg. This is a great place for many to work today. You're welcome to stay here. If it feels available to you to anchor down even more through the left foot and float your hands up to prayer position, do that. You take it in stages perhaps, or not. You can stay where you are. If you've got your hands on the blocks, right, use them to encourage your shoulders and shoulder blades back. For the last breath, some of you may feel that you can go ahead and extend the arms forward as we've done in many postures today. Not required, totally optional. Last breath. Hands back to your blocks, foot back down to the floor. Nice. Inhale, chest forward. Pin both sides of your hips in. And then start to drag your left foot back. Drag, 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 and then lift it up from the inner thigh. Chest forward. Use those blocks already to encourage the shoulders and shoulder blades back. Maybe you can stand down into the right foot even more to float your hands to prayer position. You might choose to just stay there, spreading your collarbones as you press your palms in towards one another. Breathing calm, breathing smoothly. Maybe for the last couple of moments, reaching your arms long out in front of you. And again, capturing the spirit of that even length through the body that's continuous through the arms. Wherever you are, breathing calmly. Last inhale, exhale, hands to your blocks, foot to the floor. Inhale, chest forward, move your blocks. Good. Exhale, plant your palms, step back to plank. Just step back to plank. From plank position, come forward with your chest and lower all the way down onto your mat. Good. Keep your toes curled under, come up onto your forearms. Go ahead and lace your fingers together like so. So lace them all the way towards the webbing. Probably helpful because I'm going to reference this in a little bit as well. So when I say this, because I know this can actually get translated exactly opposite. What I want you to do is stretch your fingers away from each other. So sometimes when I say that, people actually do this, like stretch your fingers away from each other. I'm doing that, right? But like in the webbing, keep the webbing connected, but stretch your fingers away from each other. You feel how that strengthens that connection into the webbing. And you may actually feel a reverberation, ideally, up through your shoulders. So do that, but then do relax the fingers in the end. Tuck the lower pinky, cross your thumbs, place your forearms down, elbows shoulder width apart. You might imagine where this is going because the toes are curled under, Steph. Yes, now you know where it's going. Press your forearms, press your toes, and lift your hips up in forearm plank. So absolutely, I'm going to reference that very first posture we did once again, Virasana. Crown of the head in line with the pelvic floor of magnums. Awesome. Beautiful alignment. And lengthen your tailbone to your heels. Just as we've done in many postures, front of the hips towards the chest. You're lifting through the abdomen and the front ribs. Side body long. Melissa at home, bring your head up a tiny bit higher. Just your head, back of the head, there. Good, reaching through the chest, through the crown. Smooth, calm breaths, last 3, 2, 1. Place your hips down, uncurl your toes, separate your hands, come into sphinx on your forearms. So elbows bent, right under the shoulders. So you're lifting up through your back bend. So again, just sort of as we've been doing, like with the blocks, imagine you were sliding your blocks back, and now imagine you were sliding your hands back so that your upper arms and your shoulders move back. And then focus on your shoulder blades, moving your chest forward. Engage the abdomen, see if you can work on lifting the front of the hips forward to your chest. So maybe bring your elbows further forward. And in, yes, there you go. You know what this Sphinx looks like. There we go. Good, one more breath here. Reach back through the legs, through the toes. See if you can press all 10 toenails down onto your mat. So you can get that little toenail down. Yes, yes, Shreen, now gather your ankles at the same time. Ankles in, yes, yes, ankles in and little toes down. Not an easy thing to coordinate. Okay, now slide your hands to where your elbows are. Curl your toes under once again. Press up to plank or table as needed. and back to downward facing dog. Take a couple smooth breaths. Place your knees down onto your mat, untuck your toes, and sit up onto your heels. Now, once again, we're going to sit in Virasana. You may want the block again like we did at the beginning, or some of you might feel warmed up enough to have the knees together, feet apart, and actually sit down between your feet. So it doesn't matter what choice you make as long as your hips are anchored on something. So, that's one block. All right. From here, just as we had the arms a moment ago, I want you to bring your elbows to shoulder width apart and lace your fingers together. And again, really press into the webbing, like you're trying to stretch the fingers away from one another when they're in this position. And then tuck that pinky, cross your thumbs. It's like you're going to do a volleyball bump, right? Your hands are sort of in that position. Elbows up. Now from here, before we do our next position, what I want you to do is check in with that alignment of the spine. Determine that your sitting bones are evenly pressing down onto whatever that is they're pressing onto, block, floor, whatever. And then find that even length from pelvic floor up through the crown of the head. So you don't want the head tilting forward or back, but really like you've got a string coming up through the center crown. And the ribs kind of even front and back. Now slowly start to reach your hands back, like you were just going to touch a wall that's behind you, and stretch your elbows up. You keep gathering your outer arms towards one another. Draw your front ribs down towards your top thighs. Keep your sitting bones evenly pressured and keep lengthening up through the crown of the head. Like you were almost trying to, like when you had your head on that block in Prasarita, like you were doing that here. Okay, one more breath. You maybe notice for yourself the challenge maybe through the range of motion or just the strength that's required. Just notice. And then slowly bring the arms back down. Okay, you might have guessed where this is going. So we're going to work on headstand. Headstand, Shirshasana. And just throw that away. Headstand, Shirshasana, the king of the asanas. I almost just like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no, it needs to be celebrated. So a few weeks ago, I can't remember exactly when, we did headstand with the feet on the seat of a chair. So now we're going to do it with the feet on the wall. So it's a different way of approaching it. Again, this is me trying to get us away from the wall, but like with, with support, right? And so I had this idea that it would be very similar to the chair, and I tried it, and it turns out it is. And the nice thing about this is that, yes, I like how some of you are already moving to a wall at home, that it's very similar to the chair. So, and if you don't need the wall, you'll be soon away from the wall. But let's move to a wall so we can all try this. And I will show you real quick what we're gonna do. And there's somewhere for everybody to work, absolutely. So I'll show all stages along the way, and then you're going to dive in and you're going to choose the stage that's right for you. So I can immediately, I'm already at the wall.
My leg's going to go up there.
I'll move that so you can just hit. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, or
You're
already there. Okay, so you're going to need a block, because that's your measure. So how you're going to measure, you can all do this while you're watching me, is you're going to sit with your legs stretched out straight in front of you. You see these are my toes, and I've got my back against the wall. I'm going to take my block, I'm going to put it where my feet are, to the side of my mat, so I know where to put my hands. Because you want to be a leg's distance exactly from the wall. So here we go, that's mine. Yep. Sadly close to the wall. So now we're going to do the same thing we just did a moment ago, this position, but with the head on the floor. Okay, so stage one will be just feet on the wall, on the floor. And that's it. Stage two will be walking up the wall. Stage three will be just taking alternate legs off the wall. And stage four, final stage, is both legs up. So I'll show it really quickly. So head down.
And of course, we want that, the reason I reference that crown of the head and pelvic floor is that's the alignment we're looking for in headstand. So we don't want to be tilting the head either forward or back. We want it to be even. So you're really right on the crown of the head. So stage one, you're just here, and you can even put your heels up the wall and just work there. Or feet up the wall, or this, alternating, or leaving the wall. Why does that feel so scary all of a sudden? This morning it didn't, it's because you're whacking me. Okay, there we go. And the wall's right there. I'm like, ah, okay, we'll just put your feet back on the wall. All right, here we go.
So Kath, is it the knuckles or your head that are about in line with there?
So I put, it's kind of like my head was in line where the block is.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then I have my feet good and secured on the wall. Okay, here we go. Any stage will do.
Oh, it's been a while.
What's great is with the help of the wall that you don't even need to take both feet off, and you're actually moving to a different kind of stage for yourself. Okay. Because it's very different than just having your whole back near the wall, right? It's exploring a different perspective, and you have this awareness that your back and your head are away from the wall. So Megan, I can see that you need to be a little bit closer to the wall, like that's where your block is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So come down just for a sec, Danielle. And instead of having your hands pressing your head, so you can make that cup and put your head behind your hands. It's different, I know. Yeah.
Okay.
That way you won't tend to grip your neck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that's what tends to happen with the hands in that position. Good job. Good job. You're saying to yourself.
I'm just appreciating other people's thoughts.
So if you're alternating legs up, you can just keep going back and forth. And sometimes like just coming onto the toes, the tippy toes. And then, yeah. Smooth.
So throws me off.
I've done that before.
Yeah. Are you okay?
In your Cumberland studio, it was like a really full class and I crashed
Right over.
Okay.
So last couple moments. And then make your way down into child's pose. It is a different way to come into this, for sure. But it's good to try these different ways, because it's like, even for myself, it's somehow out of my comfort zone. It's like, oh, I don't normally use a wall at all, but somehow, yeah. Whew. But in theory, it's easier because the hardest part of lifting in headstand is that very first part. It's really hard to get your legs off in that very first part. So when you're starting with your legs already halfway up, right, it's a lot lighter. A lot of times it's just that coordinating the balance and the psychology of the rest of it. Yes. Okay, let's find child's pose, everybody. And then downward facing dog. It's our counter pose because the head's no longer bearing any weight of any kind.
I found that one, felt like I oddly had more weight on my head than I normally do.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be or not.
Walk your hands back to your feet, or your feet to your hands if you're too close to the wall for Uttanasana. If you feel too close to the wall, you can scooch forward a little bit. Feet apart, and let's just have the hands on the floor, maybe either beside the feet or holding your ankles, and go ahead and allow the shoulders and shoulder blades to release towards the floor. So the opposite of what we do in headstand, that's it. Yeah. And then hands on hips, rise to standing. We're going to move away from the wall just so we're not all crowded for Shavasana. And then we need to come, once you arrive to your original spot, you those of you at home, you don't feel the need to move, you don't need to. Just be lying onto your back. Please. Be lying onto your back. Hug your knees to your chest, Apanasana. Let the whole back body be supported by the floor. Let it relax, let all those muscles relax. Lots of work for the shoulder girdle today, so let that settle. And then we'll move into happy baby. For happy baby, you can either stirrup the feet or hold the sides of the ankles or shins, and just if the knees bend, just draw straight down. Knees and thighs towards the floor, soles of the feet towards the ceiling. Just another sort of anchoring through the lower back, sacrum. And the knees to the chest again. We're going to take a very brief little twist, roll all the way over onto your left side, all the way over onto your left side. And you may even want to scoot your hips back a little bit to the right. You feel that the hips are not in line with the shoulders. And then turn your chest and head to the right and reach your right arm out if you have space and it's available for your shoulder. Maybe the head follows the hand. And then draw the knees to your chest and roll onto your back. Take your whole body over onto your right side. And once you're there, you may want to scoot your hips back to the left. Turn your chest and head to the left. Reach your left arm out if you have space and it's okay on your shoulder. Maybe the gaze turns. And you can decide for yourself how close to bring your knees into your chest. That will determine the amount of stretch for your low back. Can you regulate that for yourself? Closer to the chest, the knees come, the bigger the stretch. And then roll onto your back again. Make sure you're centered. You might want to tap down with your feet and center your hips and then gather your knees to your chest once again. And then bring your feet onto your mat. And let your feet come a little bit wider than your hips and drop your knees in towards one another. Rest your hands in your belly. I'm just going to take a few moments here. This will be our settling posture at the end of our practice. Close your eyes. Relax the jaw, the tongue, the throat. One of the benefits of doing balanced postures and inversions in our practices, they tend to capture our attention more fully. We tend to be very aligned with what we're doing in those moments. And in a way, that actually gives the mind a chance to rest. It's not forward thinking or rehashing the past. It's in the moment. Very efficient. Encourage your mind to be in this moment, even as the body rests.
With the sound of the bells. Slowly, gently begin to deepen your breath. From where you are, just for a moment, stretch your legs straight. And any tension can release. Just let your legs relax apart. And then gently, one at a time, draw your knees all the way back to your chest and roll to your right side. And just pause, resting in your right side. Bring yourself up from your right side. Use your hands, your elbow, your head relaxed. Find a comfortable seat of choice. Just as we began our practice, aligning the crown of the head right above the pelvic floor, finding a tall seat. Relaxing to that. Relax where you can. And then bring your palms very gently together in front of your chest. To that which is clear and discerning, real and unchanging about you, I salute. Namaste. Thank you all for class. Thanks for coming. Next week, heads down in the middle of the room. No. No. We're getting there though. Thank you all for joining. Lovely to see you all. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.
Bye.
Blessings.